For some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. For we know what we are, but know not what we may be. In the realm of time, we learn this above all, to thine own self be true.
We discover that the course of true love never did run smooth. In fact, love sought is good, but given unsought is better.
And most importantly, uncover that life is a paradise to what we fear of death. For these are the words of a man deemed worthy of literary critics' highest esteem. The words of a man that instills the belief that it is not in the stars to hold our destiny, but in ourselves. This is Shakespeare.
One can say his name, and an automatic response is emitted. A person's eyes will light up, and themes, morals, famous plays can be seen generating in their eyes. The name Shakespeare captures more than historical plot lines turned poetic. Perhaps John Dryden conveyed these sentiments more accurately when he expressed, "He was the man who of all modern, and perhaps ancient poets, had the largest and most comprehensive soul." Conceivably, Shakespeare may not even have been a poet. Ernest de Selincourt wrote that Shakespeare was essentially a creature of the time, and he read histories with the eyes of his time. He had doubtless a fuller vision and a clearer, but it was his own time that he interpreted, and not ours.
We focus on two of Shakespeare's most renowned works, those being The Tempest and Macbeth. Macbeth was written around 1605 to 1606 and was first performed in 1606. Shakespeare seems to devise eloquent shock factors by paralleling them specifically with Mary Queen of Scots and Lady Macbeth herself. He focuses predominantly on Lady Macbeth and her assistance in the murder of King Duncan to Macbeth, similar to the murder of Mary Queen of Scots' secretary with the help of her husband Darnley. As the play progresses, a foreshadowed betrayal by Macbeth to the king can easily be anticipated by history itself, as Mary Queen of Scots flees across the border to seek help of her English cousin Elizabeth, but finds herself kept under close guard. The final scenes of the play, which end in Macbeth's beheading, once again are shown in the timeline of history, as Mary Queen of Scots, implicated in the Babington plot, is beheaded in the Fotheringhay Castle.
While many claim to know it as more of an original work, The Tempest was pulled from the shipwreck of the Sea Venture. The entire episode lasted years, with members of the ship being stranded in Bermuda after a hurricane and being forced to build their own ships and make the arduous trek home. Sailors' accounts survived the journey, and people note the unique closeness between the writings and Shakespeare's work. The setting throughout is fairly similar, but with one pretty important difference: the magic. We see Shakespeare throw mystical creatures in the mix, magicians and monsters, just enough to make the story seem like a tale.
From a more general standpoint, in Hamlet, some attribute Hamlet's death and its somber nature to the death of his 11-year-old son, Hamnet. Death, however, wasn't uncommon at the time. Shakespeare himself witnessed it when he was 14, and his 7-year-old sister Anne died. It is suspected that given the time frame, it was possible that Shakespeare had witnessed the death of many others. He was also known to be having relationship issues with his wife, Anne Hathaway, especially with his prolonged absence after the birth of his 3 children. He was known for having long periods of writer's block at a time, not having new content for certain periods. Whether this be in conjunction with the absence of historically captivating events, we are unsure, yet this is another unexplained phenomenon. In his writings, he writes about women vividly. Most suspect that Shakespeare's plays have been written on the basis of his relationship with Anne, what he feared she'd do, and how she'd love him.
He borrowed a lot from history. The big themes of the power struggle. How do you deal with power? So in both Macbeth and King Lear, the same way, the king divides up his property amongst his daughters, and it all goes terribly wrong. The tragic love story, Romeo and Juliet, how much different are Romeo and Juliet than Antony and Cleopatra, speaking of power struggles.
I think a combination of his experiences plus the Greek and Roman ideologies and those plays play a big role in this too. And since it's the Renaissance, they are bringing back that Greek and Roman ideology. So that's going to play a role in it too. So the past and the present, I think, would help shape those ideas.
But there's some artists who create worlds from scratch, like almost literally create worlds from scratch, like Tolkien created, or C.S. Lewis, like everything's total from scratch fabrication. And then other writers like Faulkner or Steinbeck clearly drew inspiration from their homes and the places they lived and their experiences. And then you have Shakespeare, who seems to have done both, to create worlds from nothing, but then also to create worlds from his own experiences. So maybe that's why it's a big deal.
He explores the human psyche, but maybe not intentionally. Like, I wouldn't put him in the category with Sigmund Freud, but he is exploring the dark side and the light side of people's emotions, and that could be both from a historical standpoint and from the way that they're living in at that moment.
So that's, I think, what elevates being competent to being a true genius. So someone that's versed, someone that's musically inclined, can pick up any number of different musical instruments and in a short period of time be good at it. Whereas other folks could practice for a lifetime and be competent at it. And that's what separates genius from everybody else.
And it's the verbiage the English teachers like, but it's also thought-provoking in the world that we're in now. Like, I'm trying to think of a modern day Romeo and Juliet type story. You know, you tell it different and put it in today's standard. That's how you know it's standing the test of time. It's just being retold differently.
How far do you have to go back to be truly original? Like, everything is an inspiration for something else. So, but I don't think that's necessarily wrong. I think you can take it too far. But I mean, think about today's culture. The fact that we're still reading it and talking about it now, when there have been countless other artists lost to obscurity, there has to be something to it. It's like saying, how do you describe Da Vinci as, with a single word, or Michelangelo with a single word? Capture of human nature, perhaps?
We've researched, interviewed, and reflected, ultimately unsure of what we would find, but confident in how we define the great William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare is the man that shaped literature, changing how we decipher a poem or play for the past, present, and future. He is the man that wrote 39 plays, 154 sonnets, 2 long narrative poems, and many other verses. The man that wrote, "All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts." This is Shakespeare. But ultimately, it is up to you to decide what he is, what his title is, his label. Shakespeare is